Later, we see Gu-won talking to the president, who is surprised when he hears the man say that he should end the relationship that's preventing him from marrying the woman we saw earlier. The president's excuse is that for them, as heirs of the King group, marriage is about more than just love, but we know he wants to reduce it to just business. Asserting that one day this mysterious woman will leave him, the president leaves the room. The next day, Gu-won goes to the Royal Smile to see the protagonist because she didn't answer his calls the day before. Although Sarang is treating him with charm, there seems to be tension between the couple. However, the conversation doesn't last long because the woman the president wants him to marry arrives in the lobby. Gu-won wasn't expecting her, but regardless, he makes it clear to her that she will not be his wife and hopes she understands this time. In the evening, our main couple plans to have dinner at a very nice place, and there, all the fear Gu-won felt about the protagonist leaving him disappears. That night, he also understands why his beloved was at his house as a maid the other day and how wrong it is for hotel employees to be assigned this type of work. Gu-won promises to make several changes when he takes over. However, Sarang isn't sure if taking this step is the right thing to do because, after all, her colleagues really like receiving a high amount for a day of work that's more exhausting than usual. So, it's left as a topic to be discussed further later. Meanwhile, Deul, who was returning from the market with several heavy bags, was surprised to see her husband getting out of a vehicle accompanied by friends, both men and women, and then entering a golf simulator. Deul followed him to see where he would go, and after catching him relaxed with these women she doesn't know, not to mention he wasn't home because he supposedly had a meeting, Deul unleashes all her anger on him. But that's not the worst thing Deul could imagine because it's been a few months since her husband resigned, and instead of looking for another job or helping at home, he pretended to go to work to play golf. The man also spent all his severance pay at this establishment, and now Deul finally realized she needs to change her stance with him. From that day on, the woman decided that since she's the one supporting the house now, her husband will be the one to clean the house and cook. Returning to our main couple, in the following days, as Gu-won was very busy forming a strategy as his father asked, Sarang helped by bringing dinner to her beloved, and now things seem to have returned to normal between them. In the next scene, we move to the big meeting, the one that will decide who will take over the hotel. And as Gu-won did very well in his presentation, with a great plan to expand the King Hotel chain worldwide to generate more profit instead of cutting costs, he was the one who won the position of president. This left Waran furious, but her father was surprised and somewhat proud for having thought of this possibility. Focusing on Gu-won's sister, obviously, the woman didn't accept her father's decision, and to prevent him from proceeding with it, Waran hired someone to follow Gu-won, aiming to create scandals for him. Meanwhile, the protagonist was assigned another task and, for a while, will no longer be part of the Royal Smile. It turns out that because Ji-hoo liked Sarang a lot, he asked his grandfather if she could be his nanny, and of course, the president listened to this request. In the coming days, we'll see the protagonist with the little one, and these moments helped Ji-hoo a lot because before, the boy felt very lonely, and Sarang kind of taught him to be a nicer kid. On one of the days the protagonist was taking care of the little one, Gu-won happened to find her at the residence and took her to his room for a few minutes. There, Sarang found two very cute things. One was the award he received that day she introduced him at the fair, and the other was the first photo the couple took together, which was during that photo session when they got stranded on an island. Later, when Gu-won took our protagonist home, she commented that Ji-hoo seems to be a very lonely child and that it would be nice for him to try to get closer to him because if Gu-won had a chance to change something in his childhood, which is not being so alone, Sarang is sure he would. And she's right, so Gu-won started paying more attention to Ji-hoo and even tried to alert Waran about it, but as we know, his sister doesn't listen to him. In the next scene, we see Gu-won doing what he can to see his nephew well, after his beloved opened his eyes, and thus, Ji-hoo gained the confidence to ask to stay a few more days in the country, and of course, the man agreed. Later, Gu-won also gathered the courage to do something. which was to talk to that hotel employee who was his mother's friend. After hearing the story of what happened that made the woman disappear, Gu-won felt more at peace with himself, as if he could finally move on. However, he also chose not to know where she is living now. At the end of this night, we see that the person hired by Hwa-ran is reporting back, as she took some photos of Gu-won kissing Sarang, and it's only a matter of days before the scandal appears on the internet. In fact, the next day, headlines with the images began to surface, and the first person reading them is the president. At least Sarang's face is blurred, but it's only a matter of time before they discover it's her, and at work, rumors about the protagonist's resemblance to the woman have already started. Regardless, Sarang and Gu-won continue their relationship intact. After all, neither of them did anything wrong, and when Sang-sik joined the man, the secretary was already sure who was responsible for the headlines. Only now did Sang-sik think it was the right time to tell that days ago, Hwa-ran offered him a high position in the company to betray Gu-won. And at night, what Sarang feared the most came to light. Now the photos are no longer blurred. Not to mention the headlines talk about history repeating itself because Gu-won's father also married an employee, in this case, the man's mother. At least Sarang has a good support network for these times, which made going through this dark period in her life more bearable. However, in any case, the next day, the protagonist already started receiving the unwanted attention from King Hotel employees. They even accused her of seducing Gu-won, and unlike Sarang, who didn't have the energy to argue, Gu-won made it clear to everyone that he loves her and that he was the one who pursued her first. Meanwhile, things aren't going well for Pyeonghwa either because after being rejected by Ro-woon, her co-worker decided to reveal to the team, as revenge, that she is divorced. This obviously upsets the woman, but as expected, Ro-woon doesn't care about it and makes it clear that he won't give up on his love. Back to the protagonist, at least her colleagues weren't treating her poorly like the rest of the staff, and Gu-won even brought them gifts along with a request to continue supporting his beloved. Meanwhile, Hwa-ran has continued her plan to remove her brother from the hotel presidency. She held a meeting with the shareholders she controls to eventually oppose Gu-won's position, but things aren't going as she planned. Her father arrives right in the middle of the meeting and, of course, is furious with what he finds. He already suspected that Hwa-ran was responsible for everything that was happening, and now that it's more than confirmed for him, he decides to remove her from all other branches of the King Group. In the next scene, we switch to De-yul and see her husband crying to his parents because she's making him clean the house. As they're talking about what each should do, De-yul explains to the elders what their beloved son did and lied about all this time. Then, something surprising happens, even to me. The elderly couple sides with De-yul. Meanwhile, the president talks to his son about wanting him to personally manage the franchises around the world, at least initially, and as Gu-won already planned to do this, he simply agrees. The next day, the president invites Sarang for lunch, and during it, we see the man's true intentions. The president mentions that he will send Gu-won to some countries in the coming months and asks that during this time, while they're apart, the protagonist reassess if this passion is really worth it. Since ordering the couple to break up won't solve anything, this is what he can do. And now, Sarang will no longer work at the Royal Smile but at a small King Group hotel known for sending the worst employees. Despite all this happening and the protagonist starting to feel a whirlwind of emotions, she doesn't tell her beloved, so he can have a peaceful business trip. As soon as Sarang arrives at the tourist hotel, she realizes it's a very different place from the other one, but in any case, it was great to see familiar faces. Having this experience with simpler people reminded the protagonist of her dream to have her own hotel, and every day she spent there, Sarang understood that the employees see the place as a home and family. Everyone gives their best to keep it from closing because, after all, the tourist hotel doesn't generate much profit, but if it were to close, everyone would lose their jobs, and no one wants that. In the next scene, we jump in time, and Gu-won is already back in the country. Intending to surprise his beloved, he goes straight from the airport to the King Hotel. However, when he doesn't find her at the Royal Smile, he questions her colleagues about what happened, and violating the president's order, a girl mentions the place where Sarang was sent. Gu-won left the Royal Smile lobby with his blood boiling, but before going to meet his beloved, he faced another surprise because, suddenly, his mother was right in front of him. Rewinding a bit, earlier, the president had already met with the woman, and we see that she still harbors resentment for what was done to her. Gu-won's mother had no choice. Like Sarang, she was sent far away from him, but because of her husband, who at the time chose the company. All this happened because the woman had created a union in favor of the employees, paying more attention to what they needed and their rights. Gu-won's mother returned to ensure that her son has the right to live his life as he wishes because, in this story, she can help things take a different direction. With that said, she pleads with the president to stop interfering in Gu-won's happiness. She also makes it clear that if their son allows it, she will return to his life. Returning to the meeting between the two, Miso apologizes for abandoning him. She thought it would be easier to protect him that way, but today, she recognizes it wasn't the best choice. Now experiencing the same with Sarang, Gu-won understands what his mother means by this, so he accepts her apologies, and the conversation ends well between the two. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share it to help me out. Until next time.